Previously, we went over text formatting in HTML, starting with the fundamentals of heading tags, paragraph tags, and then even getting a little bit more advanced into special characters like the less than and greater than sign, and also attributes like the a tag with the href attribute. We also went deeper into some more advanced text formatting using tags like the code tag, the block quote, and also the small tag. And we also touched on some differences between block style elements like paragraphs versus more inline elements like the span tag or the a tag, along with how to format text in more interesting ways like bolding and italics using B strong for bolding or I and EM for italics. Now we're going to create a new file, and we will cover some more advanced presentation elements used in HTML like images, lists, and tables. Let's go ahead and save this file as presentationelements.html. You can call this file whatever you'd like. I just want to call it presentationelements.html so we know that it's about more advanced presentation elements. This will launch a new window in Chrome because I still have live preview on. And again, you don't need live preview. You don't even have to be using brackets with live preview, but it is a good tool to keep track of where you are in your code currently. So in this new file, let's create the HTML tag, a head tag, a body tag, like we normally do. Inside the head tag, let's give this a title of presentation elements. And then inside the body tag, let's create a heading, H1, and call that heading Advanced Presentation Elements in HTML. And underneath the H1, let's create a comment of some of the presentation elements we'll be creating. So in the comment, I'm going to say presentation elements like images, lists, and tables are covered in this document. So let's start with an interesting one, the image. Image is actually a self-closing tag. And for any image, if we want to specify a URL, we have to give it the source attribute, src. So src equals, and then double quotes, source of our image. For the source of this image, I'm going to use a link that I found online on Pixabay. And I'm just going to paste this inside the source attribute. So again, it's image, and then source, src, equals, and then double quotes, and then inside the double quotes, enter the link for the image. So we can see that this image showed up, but it's pretty large. The image tag also has other attributes that come built in, like height, equals, and then again double quotes. Let's try a height of 200. And then now we can see that our image of kittens inside of shoes looks much nicer now. Interestingly enough, the source attribute doesn't necessarily just take online images, but it can also work with images that are stored locally. Just make sure it's an image that's stored in the same folder. So I'm going to say image, and I'm just going to create a self-closing image tag here. We'll add in the properties later. And I want to show a little bit of a distinction between these two images. So paragraph tag, and inside the paragraph, this is an image from the internet. And then I'm going to create another paragraph tag underneath the image. The following is a local image. And now I'm going to go into my folder, web, and I'm going to drag and drop the course image inside the web folder. And you can see it says course_image.jpg. So now I'm going to close this. And now that we have an image in the same folder as the HTML file, now we can say src source equals, and then you can see brackets has suggested course image.jpg as a suggestion. And similarly, for this, we're going to say height equals, let's say 150. And that also renders pretty nicely in the browser. The next presentation element we're going to cover are lists. Lists are pretty powerful and are a great way to show bulleted or pieces of information that are related to a particular topic. So after adding some spacing underneath the most recent image, I'm going to say following is an overview of lists inside a paragraph tag. And then there are two main types of lists you'll see show up pretty frequently. The first is an ordered list. And an ordered list basically has all of the list items numbered. And with an ordered list, each list item created with an LI tag has a number associated with it. So brackets has highlighted both the ordered list and also the list item that we're currently in. Let's just say we want to create a list of groceries. So apples, and then we'll create another list item while still inside the ordered list tag. Bananas, create another list item. Bread, a third list item, or a fourth list item. Cream cheese, a fifth list item. Milk, and then a sixth list item. Let's just say vegetables. Now let's go back to our paragraph that is going to talk about an overview of lists, and inside that, or underneath that, let's create another paragraph describing our list. Grocery list created using, and then the code attribute, code, OL, the tag that we used for creating the list. Now let's give a little bit of space. Now let's create another paragraph and call this Tips to Be Successful. In this course, created using, so just like how there was an ordered list, there's also an unordered list. So let's create our unordered list, and that'll just be a simple bullet type format. So inside of our unordered list, let's create our first list item, code along and take notes. Second list item, practice after each video. Third list item, familiarize yourself with keyboard shortcuts. A fourth list item, make websites for your friends and family to practice. That's a fairly complete high-level overview of lists. Let's move on to tables. So I'm going to go up here, create a comment, lists, end comment, and then underneath here, I'm going to create another comment for tables. Tables, similar to lists, are useful for organizing information in HTML. As you might imagine, to create a table, we start with a table tag. So this creates the structure of a table and tells HTML to expect a table inside the table tag. A table does have a few more moving pieces compared to lists. For example, inside a table, we can have a table header and say this is the title of the table, but the main part of the table comes from the rows, which are created by TR, the table row element. And since a row itself is fairly unstructured, it's just a line across the table, we need to add some data inside the table. So let's add the first piece of table data inside the table row, and inside the TD tag, let's call it vegetables. And then let's create another TD tag. Note that in brackets, the vegetables tag does get its own little cell right there. So now let's create another TD tag for carrot, another TD tag for lettuce, a third TD tag for cabbage, and now let's go underneath the closing tag of the row and create a second row. And let's call this row, again, we can't really call this row anything unless we create a TD tag for its name. So let's call this fruits, and the next data we're going to add for fruits is apple, another TD for banana, a third TD for orange. So now we have a row for vegetables, a row for fruits, and now let's go underneath the second TR tag that we create a third TR for grains, and for grains, let's add another TD called whole wheat bread. And notice that as soon as we added whole wheat bread, the width of each column expanded to fill the largest element. Then underneath the whole wheat bread, let's add a rye bagel. And notice that the same thing happened again. When we added a rye bagel on the right here, it slightly expanded the width of the column so that rye bagel takes up the most space. Now, finally, let's add our last grain, and let's just call this 7-grain bread. And just to get a little bit more practice with a table, let's go ahead and add one more row underneath the last TR and create a TD. And this time, let's create a TD for dairy and add milk, another TD for yogurt, and a third TD for cheese. So that's an overview of various presentation elements you can add inside HTML. In the next video, we're going to go into some interesting properties that we can add to some of these presentation elements, as well as some more advanced features of these presentation elements to customize our HTML just a little bit more.